Well, howdy partner, and welcome to Eurogamer. My name's, I'm not going to do the accent. My name's Johnny, and I'm very excited about Red Dead Redemption 2. There's something about the Wild West that's just really exciting. It's a setting that breeds ridiculous, larger-than-life characters doing incredible, and sometimes terrible, things to one another. There's so much good history to draw from, in fact, that I've rassled myself 5 real-life cowboys that I hope influence Red Dead Redemption 2, because to be honest, each and every one of them lived a life that would put John Marston to shame. The first member of this ragtag posse is John Joshua Webb. In his early days, he was a pretty committed lawman, serving as a deputy in Dodge City, Kansas, before being made sheriff of Las Vegas. That's Las Vegas, New Mexico, mind you, not Las Vegas, Nevada. Anyway, apparently being a sheriff isn't all it's cracked up to be, because soon after earning his tin star, John Joshua Webb turned outlaw. A bit like when you're in between missions in Red Dead Redemption and just decide to kill half of Armadillo for kicks, I guess. Webb joined other notable cowboys like Hoodoo Brown in the Dodge City Gang, a posse that pulled off numerous train and stagecoach robberies. At one point, Webb was jailed for murder and handed a life sentence. After 2 failed jailbreak attempts, the third time proved to be the charm, and Webb fled, moving through Texas to Mexico, before changing his name and moving to Winslow, Arkansas, where he died of smallpox at the age of 35. We're not sure what his honor rating was at that point, but it probably wasn't too healthy looking, if I'm perfectly honest. Our next cowboy didn't drink at all. Jim Miller didn't drink or smoke, in fact. His abstinence earned him the name Deacon Jim, which is sweet, but sort of glosses over the fact he killed a whole bunch of people. His other nicknames, Killin' Jim and Killer Miller, were in fact much closer to the mark on that front. Miller's biggest achievements include working as a Texas Ranger, killing 12 men in shootouts, becoming a professional assassin, and oh yeah, surviving a gunfight in which he was shot once in the arm, once in the groin, and 6 times in the chest. The metal plate strapped to his torso may have had something to do with that last bit. Gifted with a gun though he was, Miller was eventually undone by a sloppy hit job. Hired to assassinate a former US Marshal, Deacon Jim emptied both barrels of his shotgun into the target's side, leaving him to die outside his home. And die he did, but not before disclosing the identity of his killer to his wife. Miller and his 3 accomplices were all arrested and were actually in line to be acquitted when an angry mob descended on the jail and lynched all 4 of them. A photographer was fetched and souvenir photos of the lynching were sold in town for years afterwards, which is, you know, cheerful. Our next cowboy is not a cowboy at all, it's a woman called Poker Alice. Poker? I barely know her. Poker Alice was born Alice Ivers in Devonshire, England. By the time she died in South Dakota, USA in 1930, her name was Alice Ivers Duffield Tubbs Huckett, and that's because she outlived 3 husbands, supporting her financial needs and making a name for herself by being excellent at poker. See, her first husband accidentally exploded himself while setting a dynamite charge in a mine. Already a gifted poker player at this point, Alice lived comfortably off her winnings, often taking $6,000 in an evening, which was a huge amount of money at the time. It was through poker, in fact, that Alice met her second husband. She was working as a dealer in a saloon in Deadwood, South Dakota, when a drunk miner tried to attack her fellow dealer, a man named Warren Tubbs. Alice calmly drew a gun on the miner, saving Tubbs from his assailant, and they were married soon after. He died of pneumonia in 1910. Her third husband, the guy who looked after her sheep, died only 3 years after that. So yeah, Poker Alice. Very lucky at poker, not so lucky in real life. To be fair to Alice, actually, luck had little to do with her success. By all accounts, she was very good at both figuring odds and counting cards. She also knew how to run a business, opening Poker Palace in 1910. Poker Palace had poker and booze downstairs and, let's call it hospitality upstairs. Unfortunately, the saloon was shut after a group of soldiers became rowdy to the point of being destructive, at which point Alice shot one of them dead and wounded another. Her plea of self-defense in this matter was accepted, but then Alice was arrested several times over the course of her 60s for drunkenness, bootlegging, and running a brothel. Despite these challenges, Alice continued to play poker, smoke cigars, and generally be a complete badass until her death in 1930 at the age of 79. Our next cowboy is one of the more famous ones who also has a history with poker, albeit a history with poker that ended with him getting shot in the back of the head. James Butler Hickok, known better as Wild Bill Hickok, was a famous deputy, gambler, stagecoach driver, marshal, sheriff, duelist, and latterly, corpse. So it's fairly safe to say he lived a rich and full life. He was a good shot from a young age, which is handy really, given the number of shootouts he'd find himself in over the course of his 39 years. In his 23rd year of life, Wild Bill was mauled by a bear, although Hickok did try and shoot it in the head first, so it's not like he was entirely blameless. Either way, he managed to get out of the bear attack by slitting its throat, which is pretty impressive. I mean, I've never killed a bear. Have you? Actually, don't tell me if you have. It's probably illegal where you live, and I don't want to be made an accessory. Anyway, 6 years after killing a goddamn bear, Hickok took on 4 men at once in a shootout outside a bar after an argument over a spilled drink. Allegedly, Hickok killed 3 of them outright with a well-placed bullet to each of their heads before shooting and wounding the 4th man. Hickok, by the way, was absolutely fine. Headshots, eh? Sadly for Hickok, however, he never saw the bullet that killed him coming. Wild Bill was shot in the back of the head while he was enjoying a game of poker. At the time of his death, so the legend goes, he had a pair of black 8s, a pair of black aces, and an unknown card still in the hole. And so it was the dead man's hand was gifted to the world. Our final cowboy in this little list got started early. A bit like me.
Johnny, stop it. You're going to die.
I am fine.
Give me your keys.
John Wesley Hardin's career as an outlaw officially began at 14 when he stabbed another boy and went on the run. By the end of his criminal life, he claimed to have killed 42 men, though the newspapers at the time were only willing to attribute 27 killings to him. Which is a shitload. I mean, that's a lot of people. He also once murdered a man for snoring, which is kind of a dick move. The victim was asleep in the next room and snoring loudly, and after yelling several times for him to roll over, which didn't work because the guy, was asleep, Hardin fired several shots through the wall, shooting the sleeping man in the head and killing him instantly. With that in mind, it shouldn't surprise you that John Wesley Hardin ended up spending 17 years in jail for murder before eventually getting shot in the back of the head in a saloon by a man he'd argued with earlier on. So really, John Wesley Hardin isn't so much on this list because he was cool or daring, but because he's potentially the biggest tool in the long and checkered history of the Wild West. And there you go, a bunch of real-life legends of the West that I sincerely hope have some impact on Red Dead Redemption 2. Hopefully you enjoyed this little history lesson as much as I did writing it. I tried to pick some figures you might not have heard of, rather than regurgitating a bunch of facts about Wyatt Earp, but if you have any favourite cowboys of your own, feel free to let fly in the comments. Thanks for watching!